What song we pick on Smack?
Yep.
What song?
Whatever.
Good afternoon, everyone. Gary Gabagool here with my boy Sal for a special edition on Sunday of the Red Podcast 46. I hope everyone is well and having a great weekend.
Hey guys, sorry, it says insane technical difficulties. Just making sure it was going.
We're coming into Godsmack, whatever, which is pretty indicative of the state of the union in today's world. But we got some challenges as far as logistics go today. So we're doing our best to get this through. So we're switching from the dining area to the kitchen because it's the only thing that's standing in the home.
I wish you guys could see the setup we got right now. We have everything rigged up, so if something falls over midway, don't hate us.
Yeah,
it is what it is today.
We kind of just rigged everything.
Yeah, sorry for I told you guys at the beginning of the year we're going to be doing kind of sporadic at the beginning because we're moving, but now it's finally happening.
Yep,
we're finally on our way, and things will start getting a little bit more normal, and maybe even more shows per week to give to you guys. So just bear with us.
Yeah, with some better technology and stuff. But I wanted to start off the podcast because we got a lot to talk about. I think our last podcast was about
10 days ago.
10 days ago. And a lot is transpiring on a daily basis, which we all know about. A lot of topics. So we're going to be jumping around from Sal's got some stuff, I got some stuff. But the one thing I wanted to mention, and there's a lot of stuff, obviously, but I just want to kind of get into, for the people who are our age, even people who are Sal's age, like when Sal was a youth, when he was like a youth. Yeah, youth. When he was like 10 or 12 or 13.
The two youths.
What? There were certain things that liberalism just never bled into. You had liberalism in politics where it's probably the only place it should be to a degree. And going back, pre-Reagan, post-Reagan and during his years, it started coming in, and Bill Clinton tried to bring it into his administration a little bit, but he got shut down in the fifth year. When Newt, was speaker, came into the House and said, "Bill, you're coming way too far. Our country is a center-right country, or some people are center-left. You can't be far left." And he changed, and he had his first 4 years were a disaster. His second 4 were really good. He listened to Newt. And then we got through the Bush years, and things seemed to be normal. And then the final 4 of Bush, he even kind of was going off the rails a little bit, and then we know what transpired after that with the Muslim Obama. But there was things that never happened. Like back in the day, sports never had liberalism, ever. Business never had liberalism. I think if you took a business 101 course, what's the first thing they say to you is, if you own a business, if you're part of a corporation, you never talk about politics and religion.
That and quid pro quo is like one of the first things you learn in business class.
Exactly. And
everything that they do now.
Everything. And the reason I'm bringing this up now is because everything that's happened in Coward County, Florida, with the Scott Israel, now you find out that now politics is completely entrenched in our police system, at least in this community. And you sit here and scratch your head and say, that's something. And I'm going to be honest with you. Obama was the one who started this shit back in the day when he first blamed the Cambridge, in Cambridge, he blamed the cop for the professor, who basically he was wrong, and then he was wrong every time since. And I think from the first day he was in office to when he last, I think he had about 5 or 6 police things he commented on. He was wrong on all 6. It was proven. So now this thing has taken it to a whole new level with this guy Israel. And he found out some stuff this past week that is off the charts bad. And I was going to drop it over to Sal and let me give his thoughts, and then I'm going to go back to it.
Big stuff happened, like that Ferguson thing happened under Obama.
A lot.
Didn't the thing down in Miami with that, what was his name? Gonzalez, whatever his name?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
Trayvon Martin, that was it.
Trayvon.
And that was crazy situation. And then just no respect ever given by Obama to the police.
Never. Dissed them every chance he got.
Every time.
It's hard to believe that guy, I even question how he got his law degree. But it's so difficult for me to fathom how an individual can turn around as an adult. We're not talking about a 12-year-old kid, an adult who's supposed to be president of the United States. make all these claims without having, like, he would come on, say that the event happened, like Trayvon Martin happened on say Monday night at 9:40 at night. He wouldn't even talk to him. He'd come out like the next morning at like 7 a.m. and say, the cop is wrong, that could be my son. And he doesn't have any facts. Yeah. It's unbelievable how a grown man thought like this.
He was just going whatever popular.
Exactly. That's what he did. He that's another thing I despise about him is I hate people who just jump on a narrative because it's popular and because they think they're going to get their, they're going to get their, back slapped. Like, good job. It aggravates the shit out of me. Like, do your homework. Like, stop being a Johnny come lately who just any story that comes out is going to be feel good, make you look good. You're gonna jump on without any doing investigation, whether it's true or not.
You see, he wanted to be Mr. Popular. Yeah, he always wanted to be a movie star, obviously. That was his whole goal.
That's his goal.
His goal was to make money and become popular.
Right. And I want to ask your opinion on this because now, people, this is all speculation. We always talk about Sal and I always talk about speculation. We come out. This is not proven. It's not proven. Matter of fact, I heard the rumors that you guys probably heard on the shooting in Florida, but I'm starting to hear more and more stuff about this Cruz kid. About he wasn't even in the school, and they are floating a story around that he was in a Walmart when the shooting occurred. I didn't see any video of him getting taken out of the school. I don't know if anyone else did. Did you?
No, I always thought. I mean, the story was. It sounded too Mission Impossible-ish that he shot all these people, took off his clothing, and just walked out with them and made it like a mile or so down the street before they picked him up. And then what got to me was, how would they know it was him? Like, if he was with the crowd and he was walking down the street with everybody.
And they only know him visually through his face. I mean, you're right. How would they know?
How would you ever I mean, it's almost like the Godfather situation when, what's his name is telling him, don't worry, they're going to be so scared of you, they're not even going to know what to do.
Right.
Don't even look, don't look them in the eye, but don't look away.
Drop the gun. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, and then there's so many coincidences going on. Like, to this day, I mean, Sal and I talked about this, and I'm not going to, rehash it. Just to kind of food for thought. Las Vegas was months ago. We still got nothing.
I think that was some kind of Saudi Arabia
I agree with
influenced type deal, but we'll never know.
And then I have one other question I want to get Sal's opinion on. This has been bugging me forever. But how is it that you had this shooting, mass casualties, a lot of death, a lot of horrific tragedy, a lot of people who are obviously and should have been deservedly so incredibly distraught? But how do you get less than like 10 hours, this completely organized, CNN funded, and I'm not just saying CNN funded. It was basically organized at the level of the school. Like, first off, I just find it mind-boggling that you could sit here. These people, these children, horrifically died. They were shot. What happened to the funerals? I mean, how aren't the people in the communities more worried about the people's, the parents of the children who were murdered? No, they were going on CNN and doing anti-NRA gun stuff. Like, it just made no sense to me. And think about this, people. If you didn't even know what was happening or you had no clue, how did you become so?
Listen, I got a crazy story for you. You just brought this up. It came up in my mind. Remember the DC snipers? Mm-hmm. Remember the little kid that was with them that was killing people too? It was like Lee Henry Malvo and the kid. Yeah. But that kid went to my high school in Florida.
Get out. His last name was Malvo?
No, that was the older dude.
Okay, yeah.
But I didn't have any classes with him. He was older than me by 2 years, I believe. So if I was a freshman, he was a junior. But at the time, he was. I don't even know if I was in high school. Middle school and high school down there were connected. So you had classes in some high school, blah, blah, blah. You go back and forth. I don't even know if I was in high school at the time. He was in high school. He was a sophomore before he went up to DC.
Right.
And it was kind of like, holy shit. I kind of forgot what was the point of the story?
That organization was so fast.
Oh, when that was what I'm saying. When the media came to our school, which it did after they finally got caught after they killed all those people in that killing spree. I remember how nuts that was. And they said, don't talk to the media. No one talk to the media. Don't say nothing.
Now it's the complete opposite.
Now it's the complete opposite.
Talk.
Yeah, now it's like, go to CNN, go do. Right. They told us, every teacher told us, don't talk to them. The principal came, they held an assembly, don't speak to the media, don't tell them anything.
And that's a great point what Sal's bringing up, because how many years ago?
And that was shitty ass Florida.
That was 15 years ago.
Yeah. Probably more.
All right, so 16, 17. Yeah. But in this time, look how things have changed. Like we said in the beginning of the broadcast, that 16 years ago, they told Sal and his students don't say a word. Now they're physically recruiting kids to come out and talk and be proactive. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. Listen, I know how bureaucracy works. I know it takes forever to get. I know how businesses work. You know how difficult it is just to get a meeting together of 10 people. You got to check each other's schedules. You got to check with this person. How is it that you got all these things working in synergy to get it going like 10 hours? Like something's fishy.
So
exactly.
It's so skeptical. The skepticism is
so skeptical.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And then I'm going to transition this to this guy, Israel. And this guy is proving on a minute-by-minute basis to be one of the most corrupt douchebags that I've ever seen. And not only law enforcement, he's basically he's like Hillary Clinton's clone of police work. I mean, he made some stupid analogy about OJ, which made no sense to me. And he said it so arrogantly and flippantly. He said all these dead kids on his watch. Then we find out that we know about the 4 deputies that were told to stand down. And here's what I don't get, people. I don't give a shit what my boss told me. You're sitting outside and you hear shots and you see or hear kids screaming.
You gotta go.
You gotta go in, man. You got a weapon on you. This is what you're trained for. And you stayed out. And then you watch Coral Springs Police Department. And by the way, bravo to them. Great job that they went in and you watched like a coward. I don't care what your deal was. I don't even give a shit if you think you're going to lose your, I don't even get the whole point of standing down. It makes no sense unless there's an ulterior motive, which obviously there was.
Yeah.
We also find out that the EMTs were held back. And listen, I don't care about a crime scene. Kids are dying. Get in there and save their life. They weren't allowed to go in for a while. That doesn't sound right to me. Then we find out through QAnon that prior to this, during the Obama administration, this guy Israel cut deals where he made his crime statistics look flawless, so he could get more federal funding money, and probably what I say is more money to rob. And there's something interesting. I would love to see what his bank account looks like, or if he has an offshore account. Because here's a funny thing, people. You probably don't know this. There was this black guy named Jermaine McBean. He was down in Broward County, Florida. He was killed and he had no weapon on it. But I find it quite coincidental and interesting that Black Lives Matter was never there to protest. Either was Reverend Al, either was Jesse, either was Farrakhan. Nobody from Black Lives was there for this black man who was killed in Broward County. But why is that? Was that maybe because money was being dispersed to all these groups? And then the last thing we find out, which plays perfectly with this narrative, is we find out that the Israel administration had the NAACP craft his guidelines for when he arrested and letting crimes slide in the black communities to make them look better. So, and now that's racist against blacks, because now blacks in the community are not being prioritized to keep safe, because you're letting criminals go because you want to keep your statistics nice.
Well, it's one of the funniest things. Especially, you see it everywhere. You see it in the hood. Like, what do black people love doing? Hold other black people down. It's like they don't like.
Of course,
they'll stick together in some situations.
Against whites.
Yeah, in most situations, they hate each other.
Well, they stick together. They stick together against white people because they feel like they have something in common. But I would say 90% of the crimes. How many times is a white person going and mugging or robbing a black person? Very few. I would say it's probably 90% of the time black on black. And then we know what the murder rate is, just look at Chicago. And no one seems to give a shit about that.
There's stereotypical reasons for that, but I won't get into it.
Right. And so we're going to move on from that. But the whole thing about the organization, it just, there's a lot. I know people might say I'm crazy, but I have a feeling, and this is, like I said, this is just a theory. I have a feeling this Cruz kid had really nothing to do with it. He just was the fall guy, because I don't think he has a family. I think his mother passed away. His brother got put into a mental institution. He's locked away.
He's obviously mental too.
And something's wrong with him, obviously. Right. But still, I don't know. He was either set up or they did something to this kid. I don't know what. And I can't prove it.
I don't think you want, but it was like Making a Murder, whatever that show was on Netflix. Yeah. You ever see it?
Yeah.
You heard of? Oh, all right. I didn't like that show. I thought it was stupid, but it's almost like that kind of situation.
Well, that guy was he was like a dope. It was like yeah.
Oh, we was watching the wrestling or whatever the hell he was.
But you see how easy it is to set a guy
Yeah,
up like
exactly. You get a Momo in there, you set him up, and boom.
Listen,
Case solved.
And the only thing is, a guy like Cruz, crazy or not, but once you have a kid who's that young, who has no family, nobody to defend him, nobody to stick up for him, he's free game to these types of people. I mean, who's going to believe him? They could easily just create, the media machine could just print stories about how crazy he is.
You never believe children anyway.
No,
so like,
and he just
on top of it, a crazy kid. Yeah,
correct. And so I kind of feel, I don't know the kid, and I'm not saying I feel bad for him, but it just seems to me that something like Sal mentioned is fishy. Way more to the story than we're being told. Just way more. But let's move on from that. Something that we talked about, we've been talking about forever, and it kind of came to fruition this week where the mayor of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, who we all know is a piece of shit munt, he is a scumbag to the nth degree.
Yeah.
He just gave out these ID cards to all illegal aliens, which basically are going to give them the right to vote without producing any identification like a birth certificate or a passport or a social security card. And it's funny because I heard a couple of interviews where liberal Democrats were sticking up for it, saying it wasn't that. And so when they were pressed, I saw an interview with an assemblyman named Napolitano, a cool guy. I think his name was Joe Napolitano. He basically was from Chicago, and he was going against this Indian guy who was a liberal Democrat. And he's like, he goes, this guy Ali is lying. He goes like, this is. So when they pressed the guy Ali, they called him back, and he said, well, it's going to be based on the honor system. When they go to the voting booth, they got to tell you that they're not citizens and they won't be able to vote. And the interview was hilarious. He's like, they just lied that they're coming here illegally. Why are they going to tell? And it was just such a farce and I have a feeling that they've been doing this for years. I mean, we know that illegals are voting in our elections. We just know it. I mean, how are they getting, in these places like these liberal demigod places like California, New York, Chicago, Illinois, all these Boston, all these, and even here in New Jersey, I'll guarantee you that all these cities are wrought with election fraud on the Democrat side 98% of the time.
Yeah. Oh my God. Especially any kind of like mayor election.
Right.
All that stuff. It's so rigged.
Listen, if you go back, we showed this about podcast number 10. Project Veritas showed all the corruption that in the Democratic Party, about how they go out and recruit illegals, they get buses, they ship them in, they have people voting 10 times.
I still believe in that. I said it the other day, in the whole Black Sheep thing. If you ever watched that movie where it's just they have all the dead people voting in the elections, I totally believe that.
Yeah, it's something that I think with computers kind of makes it even almost easier to do because you just get a really good hacker in there and you can do whatever you want.
Just names and numbers at that point.
Exactly. So it's something that Chicago, and we're going to be talking about that. Sal's going to be bringing them up later. Or you want to bring them up now? Let's bring up Chicago now. Another shithole in our country, but go ahead.
Yeah, Chicago. So I've been talking about it over the last few podcasts about how the people don't want President Obama's library to be put wherever it's going to be put in Chicago, and that they're doing all kinds of protesting. So it's being put in this poor neighborhood where Barack Obama was actually the community organizer of. So in a twist of fate of irony, the community organizer now, his former job is completely opposed to having this library put in and keeps trying to get a hold of him, talk to him, and do whatever he or she can. I'm sorry, I'm not sure exactly who it is, to stop this library from going in because it's going to raise rent in the area. It's a very subsidized area with people. They're not the richest people, they're poorer. So yep. I think the max rent around there, or the going rent around there, is about $1,000 a month. And
they want to gentrify it, right?
And they're going to gentrify the area to get them out. And so, I mean, they're going to raise the rents by 25%. So I know it's like $250, but those people can't afford that. That eats away at them, and they'll never be able to afford that over the year. So, and they said that's just 6 months to a year. After that, they're saying they could skyrocket, 48 to 75% higher in rent raise. So Obama is going to put in this library, and the people that supported him to become president, he's going to kick them out of that area, and they get no longer allowed to live there. And they're like his staunchest supporters.
I don't mean
they were there from day one, these people, and he's kicking them to the curb. And that's just the ultra super mantra that we've been trying to overlay over all these hypocritical liberals is that soon as the higher up dems get what they want, they're going to kick your ass to the curb.
Well, the whole story, and Sally talked about this, but the whole story made me laugh. And I'm not laughing about these people. I feel bad. But I was laughing about the fact that the irony of the community organizer that used to be Obama 30 years ago, or whatever it was, 25 years ago, is now the person looking to get rid of him.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious to me.
And,
and he doesn't even give a shit.
All kinds of bickering, all kinds of this, all kinds of that. They're trying to, the people in the community are trying to get the EPA and all kinds of people involved, trying to say it's going to ruin wildlife. Or they're doing everything they can.
Basically, they're saying tough shit, right?
Oh, yeah. So Obama's going to say, he'll grease whoever he has to grease to get that life.
It'll get done.
It's going to get done. And the area will get gentrified. And it's gonna go up in money and all that nonsense. So, and
you're gonna have a big more homeless
people moving to California,
more poverty-stricken people. But yeah, it's just funny that how this works, and it just is this continuing cycle, and nobody, or very few people in the media call them out.
No, that you won't see that on
you don't see it out.
They're not gonna do that. It's a bad story about Obama. No, what did his dog give birth yet? Yeah. That's what they want to fucking talk about.
It's unbelievable that none of this gets mentioned. It's funny. I can't even find any of this stuff. It's like you got to go searching, or you can't find it. And like you might have one or two really good investigative journalists telling you about it. Otherwise, on the news, which is the main, the mainstream, what we talk about, the rag publications out there, the broadcast, they're still talking about the same shit over and over. And it's just mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. I can't even believe that, like Sal mentions, they don't even have any more viewers because they have zero credibility. I mean, they suck.
Yeah. Well, it's all getting undervalued and sold off, and people are doing pretty soon you're going to turn it into like CNN one day, and it's going to be like,
just an editorial, like TMZ,
puppy broadcasting or something like it's going to be not even what the news is anymore.
They're going to be doing like Hollywood Reporter.
Yeah, it's going to be totally different.
That's what they do now, actually, Hollywood Reporter. But
like they're going to bring the old hard copy back.
Another thing I want to mention is it was kind of funny. This guy Adam Schiff from California, who we all know about, he's been holding the torch for the whole Russia collusion thing and making himself look more. First off, I'm going to talk about this guy physically. This guy is one of the most frightening individuals. He has these beady eyes, and it looks like he should be wearing a shirt that says "I'm a pedophile." He is a frightening looking dude, and he's got these bug eyes, and he's constantly like bugging out all over the place. And he's like, when he talks, he doesn't make any sense. But he came out and said,
"Sign of a guilty."
Yeah, exactly. He came out with his interpretation of the FISA memo, and I read it. And what he did was this guy Schiff thinks he's smarter than all of us. What he did was wrote a bunch of mumbo jumbo. He thinks that we all have attention span of like a cockroach or something, because in the memo he wrote all this bullshit in the first couple of paragraphs. Then at the very end, which is like the last 3 lines, he basically said that everything Devin Nunes has been saying is correct. And then he comes on and he just kind of glosses over it like he never said it, even though on a couple of the interviews they highlighted it. And he kind of said, well, no, that's not really the way it looks. And he's basically lying right to your face. And then I saw something funny, though. Condoleezza Rice was on a panel with him. And she did it she's an intelligent woman. I thought she was funny the way she did this. But she said to him, Congressman, we know you have, an important job. I think she was being kind of sarcastic. And then she said, but stop with this nonsense. Get on with it. Russia Trump is nonsense. You know it. I know it. And you've been beating this drum for over a year now. It's been proven false. So get on with it. Be an adult. Move on with it. And people actually clapped really loud. And then, some of the hosts were liberals and they didn't really like it too much. But I found it to be pretty funny. And I wish more people in politics would talk plainly. And that's why I think I love Donald Trump so much, is because he talks plainly. I can't stand, I love these people who say Donald Trump doesn't act presidential. And to me, what does that actually mean? I'll ask Sally, but what it means to me is you might have a guy who actually has some backbone and some integrity. Probably a guy I would say probably in politics today, the guy who has probably the highest ethics is probably Pence. I just think Pence is a good man. He sticks to, but all the rest, acting presidential, like Obama or Clinton used to do, even George W. Bush to a degree, is they say something and then they just do whatever the hell they want. And Hillary Clinton used to do it all the time. She used to be like, oh, and then they'll get video or audio or transcripts of her just ripping apart what she just said, or the people she was supposedly glorifying and taking care of, like women or minorities, she was ragging on in a memo or some type of audio. And that's what it means to make
people need innuendo.
Yeah,
they need to make their own details up about things. They want to make it dramatic and whatever, and then when someone gives it to you cut and dry, you can't do that. It's their way, and everybody wants it personalized to them.
Yeah, so they don't want the truth. I like people who talk honestly. I don't even care. I don't even mind if it's rude. If it's the truth, it is what it is. And I just don't. That's
what I'm saying. Yeah. Be honest.
Yep.
Be racist. Be everything. Yeah. Just be honest. Be open about it.
Politics
and don't
today,
get mad when other people are the same way.
Yeah.
And then we'd be a lot.
I mean,
I don't know if we'd be happier, but it would be a lot.
And like I mentioned,
truthful place.
Well, I mentioned like last podcast. How can anybody even like when you look at these organizations today, like CNN, CNBC, Washington Post, New York Times, as an adult who considers themselves to have a brain? How could you even take them seriously when they are blatantly, it's been proven, not once, on hundreds of topics, it's been proven time and time again. It was just proven again this past week of how much they lie. Like they're in the tank. They literally, before they write a story, they make a decision based on who's it gonna hurt by telling the truth, who's it gonna help, is it gonna do, and that's not the way journalism works. If you ever took a journalism class, I took several. That's something that's not even that comes into the classification.
Right, so you take the bribe by the highest percentage of what you're gonna make.
I would be more respectful if they said that, honestly. If they said, we're not really a good news, but whatever. Or even like someone like Snopes is like people, and there's another thing that drives me crazy. People are still combating when we're on the Red Podcast or something I post with Snopes. Holy shit. That is the biggest piece of garbage fact checker you can ever find. We've been through this a million times before. Why? The owner's being indicted. He robbed money. He embezzled. He did all this shit.
Not only that, is that he either left his wife or his wife left him. So he ended up hooking up, and now his girlfriend is like a hooker that he got with, and now she's the fact checker at Snopes. Yeah, and she's legit the editor at Snopes now. He made her the editor. This girl was a stripper or something.
Yeah, and he stole all them. He embezzled all.
And then people wanted to be like, well, Snopes said it, like, wow. Well, Snopes, you're doing this from a drug crazed hooker, probably.
Right.
Oh, and posting the shit.
And to add to Sal's story, there also was the person she was an Italian chick. I don't remember her name, but she was supposed to be the editor or whatever you call the person who's in charge, the manager, whatever. She was on a drunken stupor in DC. She had a limo, which probably she used the money that was funded to Snopes to do their research. And she basically said in a drunken stupor, laughing about it, that, whenever I get something on a conservative, I always say if it's good, it's bad, bad, good, vice versa. If it's for a liberal, I always say bad, good, good, bad. And so it's almost to the point, like, please do me a favor. Don't insult my intelligence by putting Snopes on my page. It's a piece of shit rag. It's a joke. It's a complete joke.
Snopes is so fucking ridiculous.
I mean, and then Sal had mentioned Obama and the disgraceful person he has become. And I'll tell you how much Obama has no soul. This guy has nothing. Not only did he screw his own people that he used to represent, but he had the balls to come on last week and say, and he did it on purpose, and I think he did it just to kind of tweak. But he came on in front of his people who worship him and said he had a scandal. He had a scandal-free 8 years of presidency, and that was my exact thing. I'm like, really, really, and not one person questioned him. And it's funny because as soon as I heard that, without even thinking, I just off the top of my head, and I didn't do a bit of research. It's just from my brain. I wrote down about 25 scandals he had, and I'm like, how can this guy be so delusional, and not anyone in the media even question him, like, to his face? Like, well, what about this? Like, I can go right now. I'm gonna be like the guy, and if you ever saw the FedEx commercial, the guy who talks real fast, that was really popular about 7-8 years ago. But I'm just gonna do it real fast, and we don't have to get into them unless Sal wants to. But we could go through the IRS scandal, Fast and Furious, the VA debts, the Department of Justice corruption, Iran payoffs, Solyndra, Obamacare lies, Benghazi, the Sabellis violates the Hatch Act, unsecured destruction of emails by Hillary and overlooking his administration, the FISA, the funding of ISIS, cash for clunkers, racial divisiveness, the attack on the police, which we mentioned, uranium one, spying on American citizens, drones. And that was just me saying off the top of my head. He was scandal free though.
Yeah, It's like he just adds fire to people that hate him now. I think that's all he wants to do. He's like, they fucking hate me. Yeah. Here we go.
It's just unbelievable, and I think when he sits there, he actually is that delusional that he thinks that he probably. I would love to sit down with this guy. I really would, and I
really think no. I mean, I think he gave up, and that he got bought out.
Yep,
and then.
I think you're probably.
I think like if you really got a chance to sit down with him and talk to him one-on-one, you wouldn't hate him as much as you do now. He would probably just let you you'd be like, listen, man, this is fucking. They got. What do you want me to do? You want me to die?
Like, yeah, you know what? Sal's probably not wrong.
So like, I hate him for the shit that he does and he says, but I mean, if I really got a chance to talk to the guy, I would understand.
Yeah,
I would understand. I'd be like, that fucking sucks, and he'd be like, tell me about it.
Well,
I hope so. Well, let me just say, I hope so.
Well, we all know when
I don't want to hate anybody.
When he did the buyout of the banks, go back and look this up, people. When he did the buyout of the banks, he bailed them out. And then when he went back and they were reformulating, he was the first guy to buy all the shares. And the China, I think, was second.
Okay, yeah, knew all that.
Yeah, so, and he bought the shares for pennies on the dollar. I mean, literal pennies. I think he bought it. I may be mistaken on this, but if I remember correctly, it's going back a bunch of years, probably like 9-10 years ago. I think he bought like on a dollar. He spent like 3 cents on the dollar for stocks that are worth tens of millions of now.
Martha Stewart shit, yeah,
correct. Yeah, correct. But he got away with it.
Yeah, of course.
All right. So another thing is this. I got to see what happens in Oakland. There's this mayor, Libby Schaaf, who basically warned all the I shouldn't say ISIS. That's not racist. All of the illegals about ICE coming in to arrest them, and she basically on her job, it's basically a felony to do so. She circumvented her position in her governmental position to actually help felons, and there's a lot of them she helped. I think there was over 250 felons that took off or whatever and got away with it. And if you look at this idiot, I guess she's a Jewish ethnicity. Libby Schaaf, that's probably a Jewish person, but she's in Oakland, and she's sitting there, and they're saying that something needs to be done. I'm like, yeah, what needs to be done? She needs to be arrested. There's got to be some, this type of behavior, there's got to be some consequences more than just a slap on the wrist, because they won't do it anymore. Because you can't make her the example, because she looks like, to me, a white, pretty, like, girl next door look. Like she looks like a normal American, woman of her age. And it's time to like say, get your ass in jail. Now you're going to go to jail for 10 years. Let's see how you do there for being a wise ass.
It'd be nice.
Yeah.
So let's hope something like that happens. I remember reading that story. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that shit.
I mean, how do you do this? She's getting paid by us. I mean, she's paid by the taxpayer.
Yeah, but whoever's paying her, who else is she getting paid by?
Yeah. Probably a guy named George Soros.
Exactly.
And that's another guy.
What do you make a year? I'll give it to you right now.
Probably did. That's exactly what he probably did. No, he probably said, I'll give you 5 times.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what he did.
How do you, I always hate I hate it, but how do you turn it down? Yeah. It's so hard to, right? Like if you come in, if you have a dire situation or something like that, or you have no situation, say, whatever you are, a college kid or whatever, how do you say no to the money?
Well, here's a story that came out this morning. And it's funny. Bernie Sanders, our most favorite dead living white man, who's old as the day is long, just got reprimanded and had to pay a fine because they found out Bernie accepted tons of money from the Australian Labor Party, which is a socialist party, and he got busted. And he had to pay a fine. I think his fine was a weird number, like $14,500, which doesn't make sense to me. And they actually are thinking about bringing more sanctions on him.
I was going to take the money and give it to the blacks. Yes, I promise. Yes. I promise.
He didn't give the money to nobody but himself. So I found that to be very funny that they talk about, Democrats always want to talk about the bullshit Russia, Trump. So now we find out that Bernie had the Australian Labor Party giving him money. So that's foreign collusion. The Clintons, we all know they were colluding with the Russians like there was no tomorrow. So was Obama. And then we found out, nothing's ever mentioned when Obama sent those 2 guys in his cabinet over to Israel to try to get Netanyahu not elected. and that was interfering in someone else's election.
Now I mean, we haven't talked about it at all, but Netanyahu's going through all kinds of shit over there. You
Yeah.
saw, right?
Yeah.
All kinds of indictment, his
Yeah.
wife. I'm gonna wait to see what happens before I
Yeah.
speculate on anything over there.
Yeah, but I love Netanyahu. I think he's a beast. The thing is, to do his job over there is so difficult because you got so many people against him, and
Not to like
Yeah.
Sorry,
Go
not
ahead.
to like stray from what we're going deep on politics, but there's like open carry over in Israel, isn't there?
yeah, I believe so.
And, I mean,
Yeah,
see what happened since they started that. I remember when I was a kid, every other day there was a bombing,
oh yeah,
and then they started doing that where everyone could carry guns. And what happened?
no
Went
bomb.
way down.
Oh yeah.
Way down the violence.
Well, here's what I don't understand. Like we talked about this the other day about schools or about terrorism or whatever, but do it whatever Israel does. I don't give a shit. Pay the people in charge of that country's anti-terrorism security. Bring them here. Pay them whatever they want. $5 million. I don't care. And adopt everything they do because on airlines, on schools, on borders, they're unbelievable. They don't have any problems usually. And when it does happen,
They have this thing where they just kill everybody.
Yeah.
So,
oh yeah. Well, they send that.
they just don't care about
Right.
that. That's what I kind of.
But even their planes, they never had a problem on the plane. And let me tell you something. Israel's targeted way more than America is. They're surrounded. They're this little tiny land that's surrounded by everybody who hates them. The only people who may not hate them in that whole region might be India, maybe. But and if India is not looking to wreak any havoc on Israel, but every other one,
my Jewish friend.
Yeah.
I don't need you. Okay.
every other one, they're looking to kill them. I mean, they say it, but
we don't need that over here.
exactly. They have 7-Elevens. That's what they're doing. But anyway,
Rich.
but another thing I wanted to mention. It was interesting since we're on Obama, but this past week we had talked about the Supreme Court Justice Antonio Scalia deceased, and I felt back then something was going on because Wiki released a couple of emails with the code word in Russian that meant murder, death, kill, and this week, Judge Napolitano, who is the people's judge, he's really a good guy. And I want to, to my buddy Vinny, who got the picture and he told us about the Red podcast. And I mean, I appreciate it, Vinny. Thank you. But Napolitano said that Scalia told him that he was being, surveillanced behind everyone in his back by the Obama administration. They were following everything he was doing. And so that's a pretty bold statement, and we know he was doing it. So Obama what the hell was he doing now, observing, judges like that, Supreme Court justice? That's illegal. It's a felony, and he was doing it, and the media will not report. And then the only other thing, and I'm trying to figure out why this happened, I can't get a straight answer, is why was there not an autopsy done? I don't get it. I hear two diverse stories. I heard that the family didn't want one done, which makes zero sense to me. So I don't know if that's true. Then I also heard that they rushed to judgment and just, buried him. But in America, I was always told if you die in your home, they always do an autopsy because they want to prove there's no foul play involved. How is this guy who's a Supreme Court justice not get an autopsy? That's another stink. I mean, everything we talk about that the DNC and liberals are involved in stinks like a rotten fish. It just stinks, man. Donnie Evans. Everything is reeked with corruption. Everything.
Yeah, and especially the last few years because they were trying to stop this whole Trump wave,
Right.
I call it, for lack of better terms or anything. Like they didn't want this to happen because they knew the exposure was going to start,
Right.
and their whole house of cards was going to start crumbling. So, I mean, they tried super hard and they're like, all right, we can either try to clean up now, go the right way, or we can go super hard, corruption and criminal, and try to stop, and make it our way.
I think
And they lost.
I think it's
The latter.
Exactly, without a doubt, it's the latter because they've gone hard. But which another thing you don't hear about, and here's another interesting thing: the guy in Florida, the prosecutor, the lawyer, Wisenhurt, I think his name was Benson Wisenhurt. He ended up dead. And people, do you know where he washed up in? Broward County, Florida, Israel's district. They said he committed suicide. Who the hell jumps into an ocean to commit suicide? I mean, come on. And he probably had 2 bolts in the back of his head or his head bashed in. I actually think I read that he had a skull fracture.
I remember that.
Yeah, so he's in Broward County. Seth Rich, we talk about that guy. Seth Rich, is the guy. It's confirmed without a shadow of a doubt, 100% proven that he supplied the information to Wiki to expose the DNC, to expose Hillary Clinton, and all of a sudden he ends up dead.
And the guy he sent the information to
ends up dead. And then the other guy who got the information ends up dead. There was 4 in total.
Yeah.
4 people, 4 who Seth Rich, well, 3 and Seth Rich. 4 guys who had the information passed from one another. All 4 today are dead. All were under the age of 35, predominantly under the age of 30, all seemingly healthy, none suffering from any emotional disease, any mental distress, any drug addiction. All dead.
Just for supplying information about a criminal activity.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's unbelievable. And that's, listen, Sal and I just talking about 3 people. I think there's about another dozen out there, probably more. There's probably 15 or 20 in the last year alone. We can go down the line of all of them that have died. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. The next thing I want to mention is, because I had an argument with someone this week. They started the argument with me in the debate, and I always say that, they go, when are liberals going to wake up out of their intellectual Rip Van Winkle-like slumber? Because think of the Hippocratic thought process of this. And I'm just going to name a couple things. I'm going to throw it over to Sal. But they always say, get rid of the guns. Oh, we don't need guns. But every person in the Senate who says it has a conceal and carry and a fucking armed security detail. Which, 2 things to me. Either you are stupid because you buy along with this when they have all this high weaponry, or they think they're more important than you and I. And I think it's probably the latter. They think they're more important. We're the guys who need protection. You are just lowly citizens. You don't need it. That's what I personally think on that.
I keep seeing this stupid headline, ban all assault rifles. They are banned. You can't buy an assault rifle.
Correct.
You can ban the stuff to make them into assault rifles, which I totally agree on. But just because rifle technology has gotten better and better and better, like any other technology, doesn't mean we have to,
Right. Yeah.
You can't. It's just like, what do you want? We all have to go back to Windows XP because the internet's so good now? Like, what do they want? Like,
it's crazy. And then you hear this now with illegals and Trump and the wall. Don't build the wall. And then you look at every single one of their mansions. They have these 30-foot walls surrounding their house.
Or their communities.
Exactly. Or the
super gated, high fortress.
I just find it funny. And you liberals who support these politicians continue to buy into their line of bullshit day after day. It's comical. Then they say this, voter ID is racist. The poor people, specifically the poor blacks and Latinos, can't afford it. Then at their own DNC convention, in order to get in, what did you need? ID. So they wouldn't let any of these people in because they wanted ID. So to get into their convention, you need ID, but to vote for them, you didn't. That is complete buffoonery. I don't even know what to say. And then the last thing I was thinking of is this one. This was funny, always funny to me. Obamacare is great. And I would see douchebags walking around with stickers on their car. Obamacare is great. We love Obamacare. But everyone who put this bill forward, none of them have it. None of them. They have these Cadillac health plans. They want it for you and I, but I would say, well, if it's so good, then why don't you have it? Drop what your plan is now and go into Obamacare.
God, it's gone.
Oh my God, what a joke!
Thank God it's gone.
What a joke! What a joke!
So I don't even worry about Obamacare because I know this was the last year I had to do my stupid fine for it.
Yeah.
Next year I won't have to pay it.
Yeah, it's annoying as shit. Now this is more of a comical thing, but it's actually it's funny. It's comical, but it's really not. It's really sad and pathetic. But Purdue University funded a study, and one of their professors came on air, and I know we talked about it, but it was one of the most. Now think about this. This is a woman who's teaching children or young adults, 18 to 21, 17 to 21. And what they want to do is they want to ban the word man from everything in the English language.
So no woman?
No, they want to call it person kind.
Oh, God.
Not mankind, person kind. And then, so, of course,
this is that Justin Trudeau
right,
thing.
It's hilarious.
Ridiculous.
And then they said, what about Manhattan? We want to call it the Big Apple. What about Manchester, New Hampshire? We want to call it Chester, New Hampshire. What about mankind, person kind? What about woman? I said, what about womanhood? They want to just call it, they don't want to call it womanhood. They want to call it, I don't even know, because that doesn't make sense, because then you have female. It's completely asinine. And she actually stood there with a straight face. I was laughing at her. Everyone's laughing at her. Like, this woman sounds so friggin' crazy. And so her whole thing was, people are offended by this word. And I'm like, who's offended? How could you be offended by the word mankind? I mean, think about this, people. Womanhood, that's going to offend you?
Fake outrage.
It's just ridiculous. How whacked out. I just think these people have so much time on their hands. They just have nothing better to do. They're just completely nuts. Freaking crazy.
I don't even want to go in on that one.
No,
that's just like,
it's just lunacy.
it's so ridiculous. Oh my goodness.
And then another thing I want to mention, and I really mean this from the bottom of my heart, they're making a big stink. The FBI is making a big push to go after these NCAA basketball players who receive money for playing basketball. And I want to say this to the FBI. I don't give a shit about players in NCAA receiving money. I could care less. I really don't care. To me, this is just a waste of resources, a waste of time. They should go this hard against the Hillary Clintons and the guys in your FBI and DOJ and CIA.
They should go that hard against the NCAA.
Exactly.
Because the NCAA basketball and football make billions of
Correct.
dollars for these schools. And
Right.
they sell video games with their likenesses, jerseys with their numbers. Like, and those kids don't see shit.
Right. And my thing is, we, here as conservatives, we get called racist. Here I am. I would say most of these kids that they're going after in NCAA basketball are black, and I don't want them prosecuted. And guess who I want prosecuted? Predominantly white people, rich white people. So there you go. Fuck you, who calls me a racist? Because right here, I don't really care about the NCAA players receiving money. I could give a shit. It's like Sal says, the coaches all make boku bucks.
They make millions.
They make tens of millions, and these guys
when they jump ship whenever
correct.
Like a bad season
they get what do you call it? They get Nike endorsements, and they get tons of money or whatever. So I don't care, I'm sick of the hypocrisy of the NCAA, because I will tell you right now, the NCAA is another liberal run organization, just like all these other stupid sports organizations. I don't really watch basketball either, but the fact of the matter is, I don't want these guys even punished. Or if you do give them a slap on the wrist, spend the time getting the real criminals. That's what I want. That's it. Another thing I wanted to say, and I got one or two more things, but I want to get your feelings, because I got to tell you, I've been waiting patiently, and I really have, I think, given this guy his fair share of time in the job, but I just think it's time for Jeff Sessions to go. I do. He's got a mountain of information against all these organizations. He's got such a plethora of stuff that's foolproof. I mean, you have a witness named William Campbell who spent 2 days in front of Congress with video testimony, audio testimony, paper trails, money transfers. How are people not? The next day, people should have been arrested. They should have kicked down doors and brought you out. So Sessions, to me,
he's to the point with me where I see Sessions and I just see George Bush now.
You know what? That's a good smaller version.
Yes,
that's a great
Bush.
That's a.
It just bothers me. He's just got to go now. He just pisses me off.
That's actually a great analogy. I always thought he looks like the elf in what do you call it? In Rudolph. He looks like a man version of the kid who wants to be the dentist, Hermie. That's what he looks like, and he sounds like George Bush. He really does. But I'm sorry, I just don't think. I don't have the patience for him anymore, because
he's not doing it.
He's not doing anything, and there's so much proof out there. I mean, there's so much, and not Devin Nunes's memo should have at least 10 people arrested. The guy from Uranium One, William Campbell, that should have a lot of people arrested. All this went down, and what did they do? They arrested a guy who owned a trucking company. Big fucking deal. They indicted 13 guys who live in Russia. Gives a shit. You're not extraditing them. So it's like a waste. It's like just, they're doing something just to do something. But Sessions, to me, unless something big goes down, he's got to go. I'm sorry. He's got to go. And then, I don't know what everyone's feelings are on it, but that's the way I kind of feel. I'm just tired of trying to put up with him. I really am.
I never was keen on him.
No, so I wasn't either. And then
I didn't like him.
The last thing I want to mention, and this has to go back to the school shootings, and I'm not doing or saying this to be make light of what occurred in Florida and all the other shootings. However, Northeastern University, which is a liberal organization, had a professor of criminology named James Allen Fox. He came out with a 30-year study that he was doing in the 90s, and he's carried them over till most recently. And he says that in the 90s, they were way higher. There was 4 times more likely of a student in America being killed in a mass shooting than there is today. And the reason he says today it's such, it's out there for all of us. And that is one, and we talk about this, the news cycles is so 24/7. They got to keep talking about stuff. Social media, we all know about that. I mean, social media now, you can be talking about something 24/7, 365 to high heavens. Yeah. Then lastly, the liberal mentality just keeps it out there so much more, and they just go crazy on when something like this happens.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I was actually, before this show started, Jordan Peterson put out a video. He read chapter 6 of his book.
Yeah,
it was all correlating the school shootings.
Yeah,
but in the book it's about Columbine and those kids. There's just so much deeper psychological things that happen with these people, and that we don't understand mental illness the way some people do.
Yeah,
and we just say, "Oh, they're crazy," but I don't know, man. It's really crazy. It's tough to talk about because you don't know what you don't understand. You just don't understand how crazy some of these people can actually make themselves.
Yeah, I mean, he basically said that you're way more likely if you have a child, God forbid, to die drowning in a pool or a bicycle accident, getting hit on a bike, but the one thing that I just want to kind of build on what Sal said is what the liberal media and liberal ideology tries to do is they try to make this a very simple, and this is what he was mentioning as a criminologist. They try to make it a very simple solution, like get rid of guns. If you get rid of guns, the problems are going to go away. And his theory, and through his research, and Dr. Peterson as well, is that it is such much more of a complex situation. You can get into anything, and Sal's more versed on this because he read his book, but I think taking God out of everything, just people have no moral compass anymore.
It's amazing that you just said that, because he goes, I wish I could correlate it the way he says it. It's their disbelief in God that emboldens the godliness in them. They don't believe in it, so they believe that they should be the ones who are the people who make the judgment.
Right.
So they're like, the God isn't doing his job. I have to do it for him. And that's when they lash out and become murderous.
Right. And then I have a theory on here's another thing I don't understand. If you were bullied in school, like some of these kids are, how come they don't go and I'm not saying it's right to do either, but how come you hardly ever hear the guy just going and killing the guy who bullied him? He kills all these innocent kids. Like, I don't get it. Like, to me, that doesn't make sense. Like, you go ahead.
Since that's the way, and they view society as evil.
Okay.
They view everybody in society who's conforming in it as evil, and they need to be cleansed just as well as everyone else.
Yep.
I listened to him reading. That's what he said in his book, and I was like, it makes sense.
Yep. I mean, and another thing that this Dr. Fox mentioned was that
people are psychotic.
Well, lack of family structure.
Yeah.
I mean, you have. I mean, I think we're at an all-time high of single mothers raising boys, and I don't care what you say. I'm not condemning. I give credit where credit due. God bless the single moms who are out there busting their ass, working 2 jobs, or doing what they can to raise any child, but specifically a boy. But I don't care what you say, and it's been proven. If you have a family, a solid family of mother, father, child, and things are good, things are solid, it can do nothing but help a child in having one family, whether it's a father or a mother. Sometimes, God forbid, a parent passes away and something happens where that makes it necessary, and there's nothing you can do about it. But in a family structure that you don't have asshole fathers who just impregnate girls and run away and don't take care of don't have their responsibility and don't give a shit about the kids they spawned, those scumbags, and maybe don't even pay their child support, and you have that's a whole different issue. But in that instance, I don't see how anyone can argue with me. It's been proven time and time again. When you have a solid family structure, it can do nothing but help. And what we find is 95% of these shootings or this violence is committed by boys.
All broken home
boys. Another thing is, and I don't think this is the reason why, because I think it's, but Sal can maybe, but violent video games. I think what happens is you get these guys who are mentally distraught. They sit in front of a game and play for 10, 15 hours a day. They start. I know there was a kid who killed, or I'd say he didn't kill. He got picked up. But in Minecraft, which I don't even know what the hell that is, but Minecraft, he made his school in the game, and then he went in and said he was going to shoot everybody up, and he got caught, and I think they put him in like a a monitoring psychological.
Oh,
but things like that, just that's another thing. And then the fact of the matter, I think that liberals just don't ever want to address the problems. They just want to say, like, if you're going to be that ridiculous and say guns are, if we didn't have guns, we'd have none of this existing, is the most ridiculous, ludicrous, and ignorant statement I ever heard in my life. I've never heard of it. Like, if you think that just eliminating an AR-15 is going to make everything good, no, it's not.
Oh, better.
Yeah, like, we're going to ban the weapon. We're going to ban guns, and that's because the argument has been disproven so many times, because in the places in America that have the strictest gun laws, they have the most crime. Because here's something that I got to give you a little heads up.
Like Chicago?
Yeah, like Chicago. But here's a wake-up call to you liberals. Criminals and crazy people don't follow the law. What don't you get from that? Criminals and fucked up crazy people do not follow the law. I don't understand why you don't get this. So what do you think is going to happen? Ban all the guns, and all of a sudden criminals and crazy people are going to be like, well, since we can't get a gun legally, I'm not going to do anything. I mean, is this how stupid and naive you are? It's almost like this is when a liberal needs their head slapped off their shoulders, because it is the most and people argue with me about this. People say to me, yes, Gary, if we did this, we'd be better. And I'm like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. So let me get this. I know it's not the same, but when you make when drugs are illegal, people don't use them. People aren't taking heroin, coke.
Every time I make that same argument about the criminals, people they're like, yeah, and they shrug their shoulders. I'm like, holy shit.
That's the basis of the whole argument.
Yeah. They just don't get it. They just want their way, and that's all. And then they get their way, and then they want to enforce even more things.
I kind of hate to say it. I think if that crazy kid, if he actually did it, had a friggin' truck and at 302 ran down the sidewalk at 70 miles an hour, he would have killed a lot more than 17 people, believe me. He would have been a battering ram. He probably, I don't know if you guys remember when school let out, how many people used to gather on the sidewalk to say goodbye to each other or whatever. It was massive. It was 50 feet of kids, and boom, you come down, you're going to get a lot more than 17. And like you said earlier in the last podcast, even one is too many. But that's that argument that, oh, he's crazy, and if you make guns illegal, he's not going to do anything, is just completely asinine. It pisses me off. It's my pet peeve when I argue with these people, how fucking dumb they act with that statement. It's ridiculous.
Oh man.
Got anything else?
Time for the outro.
There we go. Listen, go ahead, do your thing.
Now, guys, this as you see our new setting today, this will be the last time we're in Jersey. This is it. So give us another week, maybe 10 days before we can get down to Florida and set everything up and get to you guys again. But just know we're here. So,
and we're going to a red state.
Yeah, baby.
Which is kind of interesting.
Out of blue hell into red heaven.
We're going into red, which is going to be an interesting thing, and we're looking forward to it. So everybody was great. Great talking to all of you. Looking forward to talk. And listen, guys, I know we said this before, but we're committed to it. Probably once we get set up there, we're going to come in with some new equipment. We're going to be able to take calls. Sal's really good with this shit.
Yes, we're going to get the website up and running for real.
We're going to have like call-ins. We're going to have guests.
Yes.
We're going to have all this shit. So we're going to go and
just bear with us.
Yeah, we're committed to it. And we said our goal, if you remember from podcast 1, our goal was to have it done by podcast 52. And so now we're at 46. So after today, we have basically another 6 to make it happen, and we're going to make it happen. I promise. It's going to come out really cool. It's going to make it for better viewing, more interaction with you guys. Ultimately, all Sal and I want to do is make sure we're interacting with you guys, because you guys give great feedback.
Yes. Love you guys.
Love you. Have a great Sunday, all. Sal, Gary Gabagool out. What are we going, an hour and 10? I will post.
And Facebook keeps marking us as spam.
Really?
Yeah.
Someone's reporting us.
Yeah.